So you want to know more about modern Mormon feminism. Actually, that might be a bit of a stretch. You likely don't even know it yet, but I promise you do want to know more about modern Mormon feminism. This might be a surprise to many because to a number of modern Americans, you might think that Mormon and feminists are contradictions of terms and they don't belong together. But there is actually a surprisingly deep and progressive strain of Mormon feminism that has stretched over the last 50 years, and understanding that history and importantly, reading the words from that movement can help us understand key tensions not only about Mormonism, but about women and gender and politics and modern American culture. So in this video, in my latest in the series on So You Want to Know More About, in which I give you lots of homework on really important books and articles that I strongly recommend, that I believe we would have a much better discourse as a result, let me lay out my favorite books and articles if you want to understand the central tensions of modern Mormon feminism. Let's dig in. If I were to recommend one book that I wish everyone would read concerning modern Mormon feminism, it would be an edited collection put together by Joanna Brooks, Rachel Hunt Steenblick, and Hannah Wheelwright, titled Mormon Feminism: Essential Writings, published by Oxford University Press about a decade ago. This is not just a collection of some of the most important texts in Mormon feminism, but it provides really important and efficient overviews and introductions to these people, places, and ideas. And it is the best source book, not just to understand Mormon feminism, but I would argue to understand some of the foundational tensions of modern Mormonism and some of the key questions of religion and gender in modern America. If I were teaching a course on modern American religious identities, this would be one of the books I would assign. And also, if we want the broader historical sweep of the Mormon feminist imagination, I strongly recommend as a survey monograph Colleen McDonald's Sister Saints, Mormon Women Since the End of Polygamy. Now, this is a general history of Mormon women since 1890. So it's not focused on Mormon feminism, but it provides a great overview of the Mormon feminist movement, but importantly, it places that overview within the broader context of American religious, cultural, social, and religious history, showing that Mormon feminists were of their time and era. So you're learning a lot broader lessons. Now, the modern Mormon feminist movement was born in a Boston area living room when a number of self-described Mormon housewives, often spouses of academics, so there were a few academics in their own rights, gathered together in 1970 and 1971 and started envisioning a way to enter into a dialogue in order to introduce ideas of gender equality into the church. And in the process of that, they were able to resurrect long-seated ideas of gender equality in Mormonism dating back to the Mormon suffragist movement back in polygamous times, that they were then tried to reappropriate for the modern age. One of the early results of those efforts were the Pink Issue of Dialogue, when the leading Mormon cultural repository, Dialogue, a Journal of Mormon Thought, invited them to edit a guest issue that appeared in the summer of 1971, known as the Pink Issue due to its cover. This was the landmark opening publication of Mormon feminist agitation. Now, I recommend going to read the Pink Issue itself. You can find it for free on the Dialogue Journal website. But I also recommend a couple of really good retrospectives of not just the putting together of the Dialogue issue, but of the resulting creation of a new Mormon periodical known as Exponent II. I'm going to talk more about Exponent II later on. By the way, you can subscribe to Exponent II and get access to all their 50 years of Mormon coverage on their website. But for articles for background, I strongly recommend two articles that appeared in Dialogue, a Journal of Mormon Thought, in the ensuing decades by the wonderful scholar Laurel Ulrich, one of the best historians of America that the American Academy has ever produced. Her book, A Midwife's Tale, won all the awards, and she is often recognized as a leading figure in integrating women into American history. And she was also a Mormon and tried to reconcile her academic and feminist proclivities with her Mormon tradition. She was also famous for coining the phrase, "well-behaved women seldom make history," which has its own fascinating history in its own right. But the articles I recommend of hers are the Pink issue of the Pink Dialogue and Beyond, a 10-year retrospective, and then decades later, she wrote an article titled Mormon Women in the History of Second Wave Feminism, in which she showed how these Mormon women trying to confront their patriarchal religious culture and embed it within the second wave feminist movement was able to help lead this broader social revolt toward gender equality. And by the way, for this broader story of the coming of age of this new Exponent II movement, which again, I'll be talking about later, a new memoir that came out from one of the founders, Claudia Bushman. Her memoir is titled I, Claudia, published by Coford Book just last year, is a really good contribution that gives a life story embedded within this broader second wave feminist movement. Strongly recommended. Now, that era of hope and change that these Mormon feminists sought to find in the Mormon tradition in the 1970s, unfortunately, met its climactic end when the LDS Church announced its involvement in opposing the Equal Rights Amendment, one of the most important cultural touchstones in modern American religion, gender, and politics. Maybe I'll do a full video talking about how the Mormon opposition to the ERA ended up shaping the entire tradition for the ensuing few decades. Now, if you want a good history of that story, I strongly recommend Martha Sontag Bradley, now Martha Bradley Evans, Pedestals and Podium, Utah Women, Religious Authority, and Equal Rights, which shows how Mormons were at the center of the successful campaign to overturn the attempt to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment, and how that shaped not just American politics, but also modern Mormonism. But the woman who was at the center of that dispute was a Virginia self-described housewife by the name of Sonia Johnson, who ends up being excommunicated due to her agitation in favor of the Equal Rights Amendment. Anyone who wants to truly engage modern feminism should not just understand, the faithful feminism at Exponent II, but also engage the radical feminism of people like Sonia Johnson. Her memoir, From Housewife to Heretic, is a classic. It's a bit overwrought in places. It is provocative, but it is something that has to be reckoned with. And so I strongly recommend at least digging into sections of Housewife to Heretic. And if you want a general history of Sonia Johnson, just published by University of Illinois Press last year, is Sonia Johnson, a Mormon Feminist by Christine Talbot, part of their intellectual histories of Mormon thinkers that UIP is running that is really good. And this is an excellent, not just overview of Sonia Johnson's life, but a dissection of particular themes and texts within her career. Building off of the Exponent II Mormon feminism and in response to the retrenchment of Mormon patriarchy as seen in the anti-ERA stance, there were a number of radical Mormon feminists who proposed much more progressive visions of integrating either women's ordination or worshiping a female deity. And the central text to understand that movement, that both has a manifesto and calling for more Mormon feminist thought, but also a collection of essays on a variety of topics, is Maxine Hanks's Women and Authority, Re-Emerging Mormon Feminism, published by Signature Books in 1992. I wish I could find my personal copy. It's buried somewhere, but you can actually read it in its entirety online at the Signature Books website. This was a monumental publication. It also led to the excommunication of not just Maxine Hanks, but several other authors in the volume, because it represented the threat to the traditional Mormon conception of a patriarchal home. If you want a good history of this cultural movement and the church's backlash, I strongly recommend Sarah Patterson's September 6th and the Struggle for the Soul of Mormonism, published by Signature Books, the same press that did Maxine Hanks's book that has always been at the vanguard of Mormon feminist thought. This is one of the best books of Mormon history in recent years because it captures the stakes of these debates over things like gender and authority in modern Mormonism. But what about the more recent few decades that came in the wake of the September 1993 excommunication of Mormon feminists? Well, I have 3 recommendations for you. First is a memoir by the leading Mormon feminist-voiced Joanna Brooks, The Book of Mormon Girl. This was published in the midst of the Mormon moment of 2012, and it captures a brilliant and culturally sensitive scholar, Joanna Brooks, trying to reconcile the faith of her childhood with the lessons of feminist agitation that she was learning in graduate school and academia. And this is both a loving and nuanced account of her trying to reconcile those central tensions, which is why I think it's one of the best embodiment of these foundational issues at the heart of modern Mormonism and gender. A more moderate approach is found in Nyland McBane's Women at Church, published by Koford Books. This was a faithful and devoted Latter-day Saint woman proposing ways for women to have more equal status within the church without radically transforming its patriarchal priesthood structure. This is, in many ways, much more moderate and less progressive than the others, but it's also deeply faithful and an attempt to try to reconcile those feminist ideals with a devout love for the faith. And this book became very influential in introducing a number of progressive reforms that have been implemented in the ensuing decade, even if the overall goal sadly hasn't been captured. And the final book I want to recognize, it just came out last year from Signature Books. I told you the press was at the vanguard of these topics. And it was authored and edited by Katie Ludlow Rich and Heather Sundial, titled 50 Years of Exponent II. This was in commemoration of Exponent II. Remember that feminist Mormon periodical that started in Boston in 1974 that celebrated its 50th year anniversary last year. This is both a history of the movement as well as a collection of some of the most important essays that appeared in Exponent II over the years. And so if you want a great taste of the broad variety of Mormon women's voices, this is the book for you. I would be assigning lots of sections from this were I teaching a course on Mormonism or modern American religion and gender. It's that crucial, and I strongly recommend it. Well, anyways, that's my overview of the books I recommend if you want to understand modern Mormon feminism, which I promise you, you do. It's a fascinating story, and engaging these ideas, reading these words, helps you understand not just modern Mormonism, not just modern feminism, but it allows you to dissect key questions of religion and gender and power more broadly. It's an investigation that is well worthwhile. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Every Friday I post one of these, so you want to know more about videos to provide you more background so that you can engage these topics on your own terms.